So what about basketball?
Basketball. I have a lot to say about basketball, just because, with having the name of such a great basketball player, I can honestly say basketball for me. I won't say it was my first love, but I had a lot of love for basketball just to start. Again, just because I could play a lot sooner than football, organized wise. So basketball for me gave me aspirations, gave me something to look forward to, gave me something to strive for. As far as, hey, Kim Olajuwon's a center and plays in the paint. You're a big kid, you're probably going to play in the paint. So, hey, there's a comparison, have at it. So it was nice for me, honestly, because it gave me something, again, to look forward to, but it gave me somebody to look at as far as, how to emulate, again, but not just from a basketball standpoint, from a personal standpoint too as well. So basketball for me was great coming up, because I developed, I would say I developed real fast. And I developed so fast, I think, again, because physically I was more mature, but at the same time, like, there was a place I could go play basketball coming up as a kid at West Junior High. When I would play basketball at West Junior High, first things first is there were some pretty good guys playing, whether it be, local heroes or local legends, or it be, guys that are playing in high school at that point or have played in high school but are playing at a high level. So one of the beauties of coming up when I was a kid that I can remember is going to West on a Sunday, for example, and getting to West at about 3 or 4 o'clock. And this is by this time I was in high school, but getting to West about 3 or 4 o'clock, and watching high level basketball for probably 3 hours or so. I would say at probably 7:30. The adult, basketball players or the high school guys, they would kind of start slowing down. And then you knew as a younger guy that you would have from 7:30 to roughly about 8:15 for you to play in maybe maybe 2 games. But those 2 games that I would play in were so amazing because I would be getting coached while I was playing, but I would be getting coached from a guy who's playing at a high level or has played at a high level. So my expertise of basketball went up exponentially. My understanding of the game went up exponentially, and then just physically I got so much better because I was playing against grown men and high school kids. So basketball for me was awesome coming up, because in football, yes, football was nice, but I didn't have those same examples in football. I couldn't go get on the court or go get on the field, for example, like we had Jared Bunch, was NFL guy, Michigan guy when I was in high school, but I couldn't go get on the football field with Jared Bunch.
Right.
I just couldn't. Didn't have that opportunity. But when you talk about guys, that played, at a high level, like a Rashad Wells, an Anthony Hargrove, and then you start talking about like local legends, guys like Scooby Brown, Eric Hunt, guys that just played at a high level. They never played after high school, but as far as playing at a high level, at the high school level, they can tell you everything there is to know. So, and for a guy like Rashad Wells, he was like the county player of the year. So for me as a young kid, first of all, this is a guy from my neighborhood or my side of town. So to have aspirations to want to be great, to see somebody who's living it, doing it, and then him be able to come down to our level and say, hey, like I'll always remember like him telling me, hey, when you get rebounds, just outlet me the ball and then just take off. And if you take off, I'll get you the ball every time. And really, like, one of my strong suits when I was in high school was just being a big guy that could run up and down the floor. So I would beat my guy up and down the floor all the time, and it stemmed from the time I was 13, 14, 15 years old. That's what he told me. Hey, get rebounds, outlet the ball, run down the court, you'll get the ball back, and no one's going to be able to stop you. So I learned a lot from guys that kind of preceded me, and I guess you could say I was crazy enough to listen to the advice that they were giving me, and it helped me out tremendously.
Okay, so we've kind of gone from youth up into middle school, high school, but of course, tell me about your high school football career.
Yeah, high school football, man. I guess you could say there's definitely stages to it. I guess is the best way I could put it. Because as a young guy, it was Ashtabula. I want to be an Ashtabula Panther, and not because Ashtabula football was just so great, because it really wasn't. It was more about like just the tradition of guys that I knew that played, and then just the allure of playing. So high school football for me started off at Ashtabula. I was an Ashtabula Panther. Again, as a kid, I had dreams and aspirations of playing at Gennary Field. I had dreams and aspirations of playing at Ball Gymnasium. So for me, coming into high school, it was definitely a learning experience, just because high school was like the first time I was really made accountable academically. Just because once you get into high school, not saying it doesn't matter in junior high, it does, because there are eligibility requirements in junior high. But I was just skating by in junior high, just kind of doing enough to play, and being like the head and shoulders best guy. But academically, no one knew that it wasn't the best academically. So when I got to high school, I kind of thought that's how it would be. I kind of just thought like, hey, if I'm the best, they'll figure out my grades. Like, we'll figure it out. I might have to do a little bit more, but they'll figure it out. Like, even if I don't have the best grades right now, like, they'll just figure it out. So high school was my indoctrination to, hey, accountability, eligibility standards. You could have the best people around you that want to help you, but if you're not helping yourself, those people can't help you. So it was the first time I really, I can honestly say I let myself down, just because I just thought somebody was going to work harder on my behalf than I did. So I just thought it was going to be my coach, or it was going to be a teacher that was going to say, okay, this is a kid that comes from troubled background a little bit, but at the same time, we want to give him an opportunity to be successful and play at the high school level. So I just thought, maybe it was going to be a sympathy story, or a pity party, because I was such a great athlete that no one was really going to deny me that opportunity. But as a freshman in high school, I was ineligible. I didn't have the grades necessary to play. So for me, it was pretty devastating, because that was going to be the first time in my life I didn't have sports.
So you dug yourself out of that then? Yeah,
definitely dug myself out of it. I would say there were two things that I did that I can't even really honestly say I consciously thought about when I did those things. I really didn't. They were kind of just like last-ditch efforts for me to try and salvage whatever I could salvage. So the first thing I did is I talked to my high school coach, and I said, Coach, I want to be a starting quarterback next year as a sophomore in 10th grade. I understand that if I miss this whole year as a freshman, there is no way I could start quarterback as a sophomore. But if you allow me to practice every day with the team, I get that state rule says, and I get the eligibility and all that I can't play in games. But if you'll just let me practice every day, I feel like that will give me the best chance possible to be successful the following year. And it allows me to stay around the program. And academically, that's kind of what I need. I need accountability, even though you really can't give it to me right now. I still need it, because without it, I'm just out here at school without really a purpose, and that wouldn't be good for me. So I just thought, okay, I'm going to ask Coach that. And I had a wonderful high school coach, a guy by the name of Jay Corlew. So I asked Coach Corlew, and again, never in my wildest dream did I ever think he was going to say yeah. I just thought he's gonna, use the technicality of, well, hey, the rules say if you're ineligible, you're ineligible. You can't play, you can't practice, you can't. But fortunate for me, and I'm forever grateful that he came back and he said, yeah, I checked with the athletic director and you are able to practice. And from that moment forward, I knew I had to do everything that I could do to give myself the best chance possible as a sophomore. So I can remember Friday nights as a freshman. Practicing all week, Monday through Thursday, and then getting to Friday and showing up to the locker room, and you seeing guys' jerseys laid out on their lockers, you seeing guys get taped up ready for the game, you see guys with headphones on listening to music, and here I am, I got to bide my time for the next 2 hours because I don't have anything to do, because I can't play. So for me, that did a lot for me. And I kind of realized that I'm never going to put myself in a position where I can be denied something based on what I did. Now, that doesn't mean I won't get denied something later on in my life for whatever reason, but I never want to be denied because I didn't give the effort or I didn't do my part. So I learned a valuable lesson that year. And there were some other freshmen that had pretty good years. And that, parlayed them into, the next 3 years really being great for them, because they got a lot of the I guess you could say they worked out a lot of the kinks as freshmen, just because they took their lumps, and then the next 3 years were able to be pretty good. So my sophomore year rolls around. There's a guy by the name of Brett Aronson, who's a junior. I'm a sophomore by this time, and Brett is a dynamite tennis player. So when he comes over, he wasn't a football guy. But he was a great athlete. So Brett was kind of a guy that they sold on, hey Brett, if you just come out and try it, we'll let you try quarterback. And they knew he's a hard worker. So they knew what he didn't have talent-wise, he would make up for with hard work. So my sophomore year, I was in competition with Brett to start. And again, fortunate for me, I was able to beat Brett out and start as a sophomore for Ashtabula. And my sophomore year for Ashtabula was awful. I won't, not completely awful, but you're just a young guy playing, quarterback as a sophomore. The game's moving like 1,000 miles per hour. Everyone's bigger, faster, stronger than you. You're still expected to lead. You're still expected to do everything that starting quarterbacks do, but you don't have the experience to really do it. We were able to win, 6 games that year, or 4 games that year. So we went 4-6, which for me, I didn't think was that great. But for the seniors on our team who hadn't won more than 3 games in their career, 4-6 was pretty good. They would take 4-6. So from a leadership standpoint, I learned how to lead when it's not going good. And I learned that you can't walk away from that. And that's part of being the quarterback. It's part of being the guy. Because when things are going great, your name's plastered in the newspaper, and you're getting the credit. When things are going bad, your name's plastered in the newspaper and you're taking credit. So no matter what side of it's on, good or bad, as a quarterback, you got to take it, because it's part of what comes with the territory. And I also believe that my sophomore year prepared me for Lakeside, my junior and senior year. Now I can honestly say that transition was phenomenal. Now you would think that it wouldn't be, just because when you think about the diversity aspect of it, you're talking about predominantly, mostly white students going to Harbor and predominantly mostly black students going to Ashtabula. So there were, I would say there were preconceived notions on both sides. Sure. As far as, what we thought. I can't even say what we, I won't equate myself to being a part of the we, just because I was friends with a lot of Harbor kids already. But for other students who had no interactions with kids from the Harbor, I would say their preconceived notions were, their nose is going to be up in the air. They don't think too highly of us. They're probably not going to give us a fair chance in anything. And a lot of the kids from Ashtabula felt that way because they just had more affluent parents, right. Which means they had more means to get stuff done. So and the kids on the Harbor, from the Harbor, they kind of thought those same things because they had no interactions. So outside of the ones that I dealt with personally, I can honestly say there were kids over there that thought oh, this is going to be awful, just because those kids are they get in trouble. There may be some violence. They don't really care about the same things that we care about. Getting an education is not something that's important typically to minority students. So I think there was just a lot of things on both sides that just need to be ironed out. So I'm thankful that, the administration in those days created a consolidation committee where they took 200 kids from Harbor and 200 kids from Ashtabula, and they put us together at Kent State, and they would let us meet in the blue and gold room. And pretty much what we would do is just hash out our differences. And of course, even when we got finished with the meetings and all those things, there were still some people that felt the way they felt. But at the end of the day, when we came together, it was a beautiful thing, because talking to, you know, some older alumni from both schools, they wish it would have happened a long time ago, just because they felt the same way we felt. Like, athletically, it would be dynamite. It would be really hard to be successful against two high schools that are coming together that both produce pretty good athletes. So we had the support of people that came before us, just because they felt like it would have been extremely beneficial if it happened sooner. So being able to be a part of that, and last time we discussed the historic aspirations of it, which you never really set out to be a part of history, but it is always nice when you can be a part of it. So for me, as you know, as a young man who's a part of the consolidation committee, who's able to make decisions and you know, and formulate some of the plans and some of the processes that kids that are going to be going to Lakeside are going to experience, man, I'm forever grateful, because again, there's nothing about me, there's nothing about my life that says I should have been one of those people. So I realized that, you know, it's something that I need to be grateful about, and I am extremely grateful. So first years of Lakeside, my junior year, we go 8-2, which was amazing, because again, I came from an Ashtabula team where my freshman year, when I was ineligible, wasn't that good. We were 3-7, and then my sophomore year 4-6. So to come out the gate in year one and win 8 games, and I'm talking step on the field with the expectation to win, was totally different than anything any of us had experienced, because on both sides, neither one of us were successful. Yeah. So to go 8-2 that first year, and you're talking Division I football in the state of Ohio, so you're talking the Miners of the world, the St. Ignatius, the St. Ed's, the Solons, was pretty impressive. And again, if someone told me that, I would still say it was pretty impressive. So I'm not saying it's impressive just because we did it. I think anybody that would have, in those circumstances, based on the situation, that was able to do that would have been, you know, pretty amazing. So 8-2 my junior year. The next year, my senior year, we start off the season against Steubenville. And Steubenville is a place that I really wasn't too familiar with before we played them my senior year. But the advice that I got before we played them was, hey, the whole town of Steubenville is going to be there. And I was like, all right, whatever. Like, the whole town comes out when we play. No, I had no idea what they meant. So when they say the whole town of Steubenville is coming out, the whole town, I'm talking like, if you want to go to Walmart during this football game, you can't go because Walmart's not going to be open. Everybody's going to be at the football game. So playing that game at Steubenville, and I'll never forget too, they had a fire-breathing horse on top of the scoreboard. So when they would score touchdowns, the horse would breathe fire. So they scored 56 on us, so that horse was breathing fire a lot. Wow. Like a lot. So senior year, first game is against Steubenville, like I said, and they put it on us pretty good. It was 58-6, 56-6, something like that. It was pretty bad. But lo and behold, in the third quarter, they used the kid that had just transferred to Steubenville. I have no idea where the kid transferred from, but they used him for 3 plays, and that was it. Like, literally, this kid played for 3 plays. But somehow, this kid plays for 3 plays. We get word like Tuesday or Wednesday the following week that says, hey, that game is a forfeit for Steubenville. And it was like, well, what? How is it a forfeit? Like, they beat us pretty good. And they said, hey, according to the state, they used an ineligible player. So now, you guys won that game. I was like, wait a second. Wait a second. Like, we got destroyed. What do you mean we won? So, if you look up the 2002-2003 Ashtabula Lakeside record, that game, the Steubenville game, will say 2-0. And that's how it goes down in the history books, but they didn't lose the game. And then when you talk about playoff aspirations my senior year, so we go 8-2 again, but because Steubenville didn't lose a game, Steubenville, their record was 9-1. So their only one loss was to us, and they didn't really lose to us. So when you talk about playoffs, we got all of their secondary points because they won 9 games. So we were able to make the playoffs my senior year, and Division I, Region I, which is, again, you're talking Miner, St. Ed, St. Ignatius, Solon, schools of that caliber. And at this time, not to take anything away from kids that play today, but at this time they only took the top 8
Right.
So it was truly the best of the best. So we were fortunate enough to make the playoffs my senior year. We ran into the juggernaut that is the Mentor Cardinals, and we got beat pretty good. It was 58-6. But the experience was the experience of a lifetime. It's not anything I would ever trade. I would never wish we did better. We did exactly how, we should have done based on the caliber of opponent we were playing. And we didn't leave that field thinking that, we didn't earn Mentor's respect. At that point, when that game was over, Mentor knew, hey, these guys, they just play at a lower level. Yes, they're Division I, Region 1, but they don't play the caliber of competition we play week in and week out. So, most importantly for us, it was about earning their respect, even though I guess you could say we were deficient per se as far as talent. I believe they had 82 players on the team. They were lined up from like the 20 to the 20. They had 15 or 16 coaches. I can remember going to the line of scrimmage, and this was a time, which younger guys, that get a chance to watch this will appreciate. But during this time, teams didn't have audibles. So whatever play you called in the huddle, that's the play you were going to run at the line of scrimmage. So Mentor, what they were doing is they would wait till we lined up. As soon as we lined up, they would call the play out. And you only get 3 timeouts in a half, so we could only call it 3 timeouts. Once we, exhausted our timeouts, there was no other way for us to stop it and change the play or do any of that. So we kind of became, I would say, halfway through the first quarter, we became sitting targets on offense, just because. And that to me, again, was not indicative of our coaches. I didn't think any more critical of our coaches. I just knew at that point there's levels to it, and they got coaches that operate at a higher level. But again, I'm thankful for my coaches. I go to war with my coaches at that time and today. I'd go to war with them. Again, you just realize that other people have access to different things, caliber of players, competition levels, all those things.
Okay, so what happened your senior year?
All right, so senior year, we go 8-2. Fortunate enough to make the playoffs. Told you about the Steubenville situation, as far as them beating the snot out of us, and then us getting the forfeit. And again, with them going 9-1, that gave us tons of points, really. And as much as I hate to say it, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that, and this is not to give Conneaut credit, but for whatever reason, we didn't beat Conneaut 2 years in a row as Lakeside, and they didn't have the talent we had. It wasn't even close. So schematically, I can honestly say that Conneaut figured out some ways to defend us schematically, and some ways to be decent, I guess you could say, offensively. Really kind of doing some stuff that we wouldn't expect. So again, I know this is not about Conneaut or anything like that, but again, that was a huge part of high school, just because that was the only team I lost to in the county. So it just was like, man, like they figured something out. So again, I thought I would mention that.
Okay, so any other highlights of your senior year?
Yeah, I would say we played a team out of Akron, Walsh Jesuit, which is a private school, which we didn't know too much about them outside of they had 2 Division I football players on the team. But at the same time, our coach said, from a playoff standpoint, we want to be playing against better teams, just because if we beat the better teams, it's going to be extremely beneficial for us down the road. So we played Walsh Jesuit at Gennary Field. Somehow we got them to come to Ashtabula, and we were able to win the game. I threw the game-winning touchdown with I think it was 25 seconds left, 30 seconds left in the game. So to win that game, I guess you could say that was kind of like our rival. Like what we thought, okay, we didn't just beat somebody within our county. We didn't beat somebody that no one knows. We just beat a household name as far as Northeast Ohio. So maybe there is something to our group. Maybe we do have what it takes, and from a accountability standpoint, as far as our coaches, it just elevated our belief in them tremendously, just because they had guided us and helped us win such a big game. And then the other things I think about my senior year are the Madison game. And Madison is a traditional power, I guess you could say, in Lake County. But back in not in these times, but prior to this, I would say probably like 10 years prior to us playing Madison, Madison was a part of the NEC, which was the county conference. So anytime you could have success against Madison, it's a big deal. So I remember the Madison game, again, had big implications just because we were both 4-0 at the time. And we were able to beat Madison 28-24 in a barn burner. But again, that I'll never forget what it looked like after the game against Madison. Just because our side was not predominantly black. Our team was pretty mixed. It was pretty diverse as far as Lakeside is concerned. So you could see, African Americans, Caucasians, Hispanic. We kind of had the whole gamut. But I never will forget what it looked like against Madison, just because the disparity of the diversity on our side, but then no diversity on Madison's side. So I think some of the cultural things that we experience in society, I think that situation was a microcosm of some of the stuff that we kind of experienced. I know there were some people over there that it wasn't just about the game. It was more about the racial tone of the game, and them having been beaten by a team that has diversity on it. So that was a huge moment for us as a team, and we never discussed it from a racial standpoint. We just discussed what it looked like, and at that time when we were discussing it, we never thought about that it was racism. We just kind of thought they're not happy because you already had this perception about Madison just based on what you heard about Madison. So we kind of already knew going into it that, hey, this is not a situation where they think too highly of us either. And we didn't think too highly of them, but we consciously talked about what it looked like, and I can honestly say that there was a feeling of jubilation on our side, of triumph that I can't say that I ever really experienced before, but I think it was bigger than the game. It was us winning the game was bigger than winning the game, if that makes sense. Yeah. And then the other things were just and this is it gives me goosebumps when I talk about it, just because I've never seen Ashtabula on fire the way it was on fire when Lakeside first came about. I'm talking parades in the city. It seemed like everyone was together. I can't say no one was seeing race, but it felt like none of that stuff even mattered. Just because you had so many people on both sides of the board helping out. And I think it was a time where Ashtabula kind of realized that, hey, these are kids, and this is the experience they're going to have, and their experience is going to be predicated upon how the adults conduct themselves in this experience, in this circumstance. So I think adults did a great job of taking a back seat and understanding this ain't about you. This is about the kids. This is about the experience. So for me, honestly, God, truth, Larry, it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. And today, I guess, when I look back on it, I know that there were people that weren't happy about it, but they didn't allow that to stop us from having a great experience. So of course you get out, you live life, you start to see some things as you get older. You realize that maybe even some of the views of some of the people that were not just on our team but around our team may not have been their views. They may have been their parental views, just because a lot of those people, I think, based on my dealings with them, are better today. So my senior year was, it was beautiful because it culminated with the playoffs. And again, even though the playoffs didn't go great, it makes me think about, the police escort and not having to stop at any lights. Those types of things. Pulling up to a stadium where you get off the bus and there's people, there's fans tailgating, there's camaraderie, there's family, there's and even though we were the opponent, no one treated us when we got off the bus. It wasn't like we were the Bad News Bears and we got off the bus. It was, you guys are kids that just made the playoffs. we know what that feels like because our kids are making the playoffs. So the environment was amazing. Honestly, it was amazing. So at that point, when I look back on it, I don't have any qualms about not winning the game. Yeah, of course I would have liked to win the game, but at that point in our program's, existence, we weren't there. Like, we just weren't there. So my senior year was amazing. And also, I was able to win Homecoming King, which I guess you could say is prototypical of the quarterback to win. But that was for me. It was great because it was a way for me to honor my family and to make my family proud. So, and I even told this story when I was in college, and I think it's a great story. And I think if you can understand this, then you can kind of understand how I was raised by my great grandmother. But I'll never forget, I won homecoming. We won the game. I get home to my great grandmother's house, and I can't wait to tell her, like, hey, great grandma, grandma, I won homecoming. Like, can you believe that? Nobody in our family's ever won homecoming. Like, nobody in our family's ever really won anything. But I won homecoming, and she didn't flinch. She didn't mince her words. Like, none of her response was, it's Friday night, the trash needs to go out. And that moment initially, I was like, wow, like, man, you want to talk about driving a hard bargain? That's a hard bargain. But when we had that conversation, we didn't have it until a year later when I was on my way to college. When we had the conversation on my way to college, she explained to me why she was like that, and it meant everything, and it made perfect sense. And what she explained to me was, no matter how high you go in life, no matter how far you go in life, I don't want you to ever forget who you are. And I was like, man, like, there was another way for you to teach me that life lesson outside of that, but I do understand that. So I can honestly say in my life today, it doesn't matter what happens for me. It can never be so great that I'm ever going to forget who I am and where I come from. So for me, that life lesson, when people hear it, initially that's always the response. People die laughing. They're like, oh my God. Like, and then when I explained to them, what her perspective was as far as why she responded to me in that way, they're delighted even more because of the life lesson she was trying to teach in that moment. So for that, like I said, my senior year was amazing. And then, I have stories like that to tell, that are great as well.